Because an HDR image is comprised of multiple individual frames, if anything at all is moving within the scene, there can be some problems with ghosting. In other words, you'll have part of a subject in one area and part of the subject in another area, or you might have the subject multiple times with some fading effect, a ghosting effect. In this particular photo, of course, you might assume nothing would be moving at all. After all, it's a photograph of statues in a plaza with some buildings nearby. And yet, if we take a closer look, we'll actually find that there were some moving subjects in this case, specifically some pigeons that were on one of the statues. And you might also notice that we have a ghosted pigeon. So we have one pigeon that appears pretty much normal and another pigeon that is just a faint glow here. We've got just a faint shadow of the pigeon because this pigeon was moving around during the exposures, and so it was in a different position for each of those exposures. But in HDR Pro, we're able to remove those ghosts. I'll turn on the Remove Ghosts checkbox, and we can see that that ghosting has now disappeared. So now we have just the one pigeon without that ghosted pigeon over to the right of it. In this case, the pigeon was moving quite a bit, and so in each frame, it's actually in a different position. In some cases, just with its head turned, and in other cases, actually moving around the statue a little bit. When you turn on the Remove Ghosts option in HDR Pro, it needs to use a single frame as the keyframe for determining where the objects should be. In other words, which areas of the image represent ghosts. That keyframe is identified with a green box around it, but we can also change the keyframe. If, for whatever reason, we feel that we want the moving subjects to be rendered in a particular position, we can switch to a different keyframe. So I'll go ahead, for example, and click on the next frame to set that as the keyframe, and once the preview updates, you'll see that the pigeon is in a slightly different position. You'll also note that the clouds moved a little bit. I'll go ahead and click on the next image as well, and you can see the pigeon turned its head, and we also have another pigeon, or at least part of a pigeon, over on the left side of the frame. So we could navigate among the various frames here to decide which frame we'd like to use as the keyframe, and that will, of course, affect how the image is interpreted and what the final result looks like. So here, for example, we can see the head of the pigeon has gone missing. And so you can go through each of those frames and find which one represents the best keyframe for that Remove Ghosts feature. In this case, I think that exposure there, the one with the even exposure value, is probably the best option, so I'll set that as my keyframe. But as you can see, the Remove Ghosts option works pretty well, and we do have that extra flexibility of being able to determine which frame will be used as the basis of that ghost removal.